Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I want to do a quick follow up on the video we talked about last week, or the class lecture we had last week, about writing and thinking, and the idea that writing is thinking, and Ellen Jacobs' contention that people generally don't want to think. Today, I want to link that to AI for a little bit. As always, all borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. I am not trying to monetize this video. I am just trying to help students who miss class have an idea of what went on in class and a way to catch up on lecture notes. As a quick reminder, the Jacobs quotation had a few highlights. Number one, we suffer from a settled determination to avoid thinking. The reasons for that are it troubles us, it tires us, it forces us out of familiar, comforting habits, it complicates our lives, especially because it can set us at odds with people we love, admire, follow, people we like. So there's this temptation to not think. Because I believe thinking is writing and writing is thinking, I think the two are linked. One of the things that's true from Jacob's quotation is people also suffer from a settled determination to avoid writing. And one of the quickest and easiest ways to avoid writing that's come up over the past year and a half is AI. So, what I did is I took a potential prompt for one of my papers, write a 300-word response explaining whether Craig Johnson's novel, The Cold Dish, is a police procedural. Within 5 seconds, ChatGPT spit out the following. When you take a look at it, there are a couple of things. Number one, if writing is thinking, and a lot of times all of that writing and all of that thinking rely on observation, to go back to last week's videos, there are no concrete details provided. They talk about his team of deputies, but they don't give names. They talk about an initial crime scene, but they don't tell what the crime was. They give some specifics about the internal, or they talk about the internal workings, but they give no specifics about what the depiction of the internal workings are, or how Longmire interacts with his team of deputies or other law enforcement agencies. There are no details, therefore, there are no observations. If there's no observations, nothing is being seen, nothing is being recorded. There is absolutely, positively no thinking required, no thinking occurring, excuse me. And with no details, a reader can't even begin to wonder what it is one should look for in a novel or in a police procedural or anything else. And because ChatGPT is so vague, it is really empty, and it takes people away from the simple act of thinking. And without the ability to observe, as I've said several times already, there's the thinking and writing are prevented. And obviously, writing is prevented because you're copying and pasting a prompt, and ChatGPT does all the work. So, when it comes to thinking and writing, I think it's just important to understand ChatGPT doesn't allow for thinking and writing. To continue, I can take the ChatGPT thing, put it in an AI detection thing, and it tells me your text is likely written by AI. I can record a zero. It becomes this vicious circle. There is no thinking. You're not thinking, I'm not thinking. copying and pasting by either of us is neither observing nor thinking. And because I'm recording a zero, our lives are complicated and we're set at odds. So even though we're trying to avoid thinking and avoid the complications of thinking, we've got a worse problem because we haven't sat down and thought. So I'm just going to urge you to avoid the temptation to get an assignment done in 5 minutes. Take your time, work your way through the assignment. It'll just work a lot better. I think AI has some bigger implications outside the classroom. And I'm taking these quotations from various sources. You can see the internal citation down at the bottom of the screen. I'm just trying to talk about things that are going to occur outside of the classroom. Unless you plan on being an educator, you're going to be outside of the classroom way more than you're inside the classroom. Number one, it's important to remember that it has confident but frequently false statements. And so I think it's important to understand that you're going to have to spend time verifying those statements anyway. So verify first, write your own paper. I think that's important. Second, I'd mentioned the internal citation. The generative AIs just grab things from all over the place. They don't give any citations. They don't give anyone credit. So you're plagiarizing by stealing things that were others' ideas in the first place, because that's what ChatGPT does. Next, if you could look at the first bullet point, if anyone can sneeze out 300 words with ChatGPT, maybe saying something original becomes productivity. Going on with that point, I think it's important to remember the whole idea of coming to college is learning how to think. And if you're learning how to think, being original is part of that. Trying to be original is a big part of it. And cliches, if you look at the second bullet point, aren't actually valuable. The corporate bingo card. Words like touch base, empower, low hanging fruit, close of play, milestone, benchmark, dotting the I's and crossing the T's are all cliches. To think outside the box is a cliche. And as we keep tossing out cliches, we're not saying anything. And we're certainly not saying anything valuable. The goal of communication is to have a message that is understandable, that can be sent to a receiver, and the receiver can benefit from the message. Writing, speaking are about sending messages. Pounding out cliches that ChatGPT has found don't allow for any of that to happen. Next, the people around us sway our decisions. And what's going to happen if we start treating ChatGPT or any AI like a human? What is going to happen there? What are the social influences likely to happen? And I think it's an important question. As we start leaning more and more into technology, are we going to forget the human factor? And I think it's important to always remember that there's some intrinsic value in recognizing your fellow human as a human being. I think that that's an important element that should be just part of living as a good person. This is the question I talked earlier. How does the process of socialization change if we start treating the artificial agent as a fellow human? I'm not a Luddite. And I think it's important to understand that there are some good things. If you look at the quotation by Wang here, artificial intelligence augments and accelerates research. It helps design experiments and interpret large data sets. But I think there's some important caveats that I'll get to as I go through the next couple of slides. He gives a concrete, or this is from Scientific American, Lewis gives this concrete example. They tested 283 promising compounds, and they found out they were effective on some of the most stubbornly hard to kill pathogens. So they use a type of AI known as deep learning. But that deep learning AI is different than the ChatGPT generative AI. And so it's important to remember when you hear AI being used for all these scientific things, they're using a different format, a different kind of AI. They're not using that black box that's the typical generative AI model. And look, if manual effort is not scalable, then AI may speed up the development of new drugs, chemicals, and materials. That's great. But once again, I think it's important to understand that may not be the AI model you're working with. And second, the people working with that model have a huge knowledge base that they gained without AI so that they can make it work for them. They did more than just type a simple prompt and ask it to spit out a response. And I don't think any of us are at that level yet. Quick wrap up. As always, here's the citations. The point is, I'm just asking you to write your own paper. I'm trying to remind you that AI, by definition, is stealing ideas and words that that it didn't create. So it is plagiarizing. By copying and pasting it, you're plagiarizing somebody who has plagiarized. So do your own work. And more importantly, do your own work because writing is thinking, and thinking is intrinsically valuable. And it's your way of being able to avoid cliches. It's your way of being able to be creative. And I think creativity is a huge part of what it means to be human. I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope I didn't sermonize too much. Hope everybody has a good day. Hope to see you in class the next class period.